you go. Darren Michael Boyd, Wonders of the Invisible World. Thank you so much, Darren, for coming and spending some time with us today and sharing your story. Really a pleasure. Our next artist is a gentleman who is from Nashville by way of San Antonio, Texas. A little bit of a jaunt there, but not an uncommon one. We found a lot of artists make the trek to Nashville at some time in their career, and he has an album out called Things to Come, and we'll be playing the title track after we talk with him. First, want you to kick back and listen to Lillian.
She said she never wears underwear. I said I never wear shorts. She said she don't believe in life after death. I said we're all just a riding course. She said let's just try to run away. I said no, let's go for a walk. She said I'd never been one for words, so we sat up all night and we talked. She was lost when I found her, born and raised here, looking like an out of town. And she's a down when they're up, gets high when she's low. Ask her what she wants, she says she don't know. She's an on again, off again. Oh yeah, Lillian has a job that she loves to hate, but still she never quits. She really likes to use the word blasé, compares herself to a car on brakes. Oh, she was lost when I found her, born and raised here, looking like an out of town. And she's a down when they're up, gets high when she's low. Ask her what she wants, she says she don't know. She's an on again, off again. Whoa, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I guess the self-degradation was what I connected with most. It feels kind of messed up to say it, but it's nice to know you're not alone. I was lost when you found me, raising hell, trying so hard to push my boundaries. I was up to get down, high rolling stone, didn't know what I needed, didn't care anymore, till I met you and let you in. Oh yeah, Lillian. Oh yeah, Lillian. Oh yeah, Lillian. She said she never wears underwear. I said I never wear shorts.
Okay. Tell you what, let's bring the man on in here. Jeremy Parsons, welcome aboard.
Hey, thanks for having me on, y'all.
I'm so glad to have you here, and thank you for the neat tale of Lillian there. Caught us by surprise there, but your ears perk up and say, "Wait a minute, what's he going to say next? Do we need to pull the plug?"
Underwear?
Well,
Great.
It's almost one of those lines. It's like it's an attention grabber. I think that's exactly what it's supposed to be. But it's just like I don't. That just like popped in my head. It was weird. It's also very in line with my sense of humor and personality too. It's just I'm a weird guy, and I think weirdly, so it works.
You fit right in here, and you fit right in the music industry. Believe me, there are a lot of less than normal people there. Great line, and you're right.
Nice way of putting it.
It is a great hook, and yes, it does work. Absolutely. Now, I have to ask you the obvious follow-up question. Is this based on anyone in particular?
I think it's based yes and no. Like it's kind of based on a past relationship I had, and also just a specific type of person, like a very artsy kind of lost individual in general. I mean, we're all are lost individuals at some point. We're constantly trying to figure out our lives, and it's kind of like bringing that person to life by way of like just a bunch of examples that I had around me at the time, and not excluding myself. That's why later in the song I identify with the person in a sense, is what I get from them is a bit of myself at the same time. It's like two people facing each other and accepting what they are and being cool with that in a certain sense.
Sure. Yeah, and very well done, I might add. You managed to inject both of your goals, your goal of a story song, and also your goal of injecting something that's a little bit off the wall as a hook, but yet still creative, not just a cheap throwaway line trying to get somebody's attention. And I think it's an excellent combination. I think you did a great job. What do you think, John Bon Jovial?
Oh, I have to agree. Jeremy, I think it's a terrific song. You've got a great hook. And not just because she doesn't wear underwear, but I think the whole song is just a good driving force. And while I'm listening to it, David will tell you that it's rare that I get to hear the music before airtime. And so this is the first time I've ever heard the song. And, I always try to think in my mind, where is this coming from? And to me, it was kind of like a Garth Brooks meets the Amazing Rhythm Aces meets George Jones mashup, and you pulled it off beautifully. You really did.
Very cool. I'll take that, man. There's nothing bad about anything you just said in my mind.
No, I like the song. I tell you what, I'll put it this way. If I were still a PD back in radio, in my country music days when I was jockeying radio and programming country music, I would have looked at that and give it extremely close consideration, because I think it would have probably fit the mission of what we were trying to accomplish. It's a great song.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's always like, you're kind of just like interacting with the moment when an idea comes. Like the reception of that song has been really well, and it means a lot, and a lot of people have connected with it in a really cool way, especially women, which I think is like it's really important to me. Like as a man, I don't want to exclude anybody, and it's
Sure.
kind of like, some dude songs can be written just from the male perspective in a sense, but it's like I think as a songwriter, I think psychology has a lot to do with it, and it's not the study of a man; it's the study of people, in a sense. So it's the connection with that has been like really overwhelming in a great way, especially when I've read
Sure.
reviews on that song and everything, and your review is just as meaningful too. So I really appreciate it.
Well, it's a good sound. Tunes with a person's name, and especially a girl's name, have always been a good shot at having a hit. But this is also a good song. It's not just a tune with a girl's name. It's a good song. It's got a storyline. It's got a wonderful hook to it, and you do it very well. So yes, I'm not surprised that you've gotten some great compliments on the tune. It's a good one. And yes, John Bon Jovial doesn't get to hear the songs before we play them, and that's intentional because I like to get the first reaction of somebody. And of course, doing this show, we don't get to get a lot of first reactions from people because by the time they write us or something, they've already thought about it. So I thought, hey, we just won't tell John what we're playing. He won't get to hear it, and we'll get his first reaction.
Yeah, I'm kind of like a guinea pig, if you will.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but necessary.
It is necessary.
Guinea pigs are so necessary.
It is. It's absolutely necessary to do it that way. When David and I put this show together, 8 years ago, we've been doing it every week for 8 years now, and one of the things that we discussed was how are we going to review the music, and while we were throwing ideas back and forth, he basically said, you know what, I don't think you should hear the music at all until we play it. And at first I wasn't really too cool about that, but the more I thought about it, I thought, actually to get a visceral gut reaction is probably the best way to go, and indeed we were right.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
definitely.
it's way more real that way. Yeah.
And it's definitely worked. Now, Jeremy, you made the journey from San Antonio to Texas. What inspired you to make that move?
From San Antonio to Nashville.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I'm actually back in Texas now. I moved back December of 2019. I've been back over a year.
I can
now.
update my notes.
Oh yeah, you're all good. It's fairly recent too. So, and with the whole pandemic thing that went down, everything got kind of,
Sure.
luckily I moved back before all that stuff went down. So, but yeah, it was. I lived in Nashville for 10 years. It seemed like at the time I was just looking at it. Being in San Antonio, I'm like an hour and a half from Austin. So it's like, in Texas, it's like, well, why didn't you just go to Austin? I get that question all the time. And
Sure.
my answer is, well, I did the math. I looked at all the artists that I followed that were Texas artists that I really liked. And they usually went to Austin first as well. But I noticed there was a pattern in almost 90% of them that they spent about 8 to 10 years in Austin and inevitably ended up in Nashville anyway.
Right.
Doing another 8 to 10 years, and then eventually coming back to Texas because, there's more like musical freedom. Like there's no like the label constraint that occurs up there as far as like, them kind of sniffing creative ideas before they can get to their like full potential.
Right.
But they all end up back in Texas anyway, and I thought to myself like, well, why not do Nashville first if I'm going to come back to Texas anyway? So it was, I went and I was like, I'll give myself like 3 to 6 months, see if anything happens. In 3 to 6 months, I had like attended a house party and a bluegrass band, the Grascals, that was doing very well at the time was there, and they heard one of my songs and they cut it. So within my first 3 months, I had a cut. Within my first year, I was making a record, and it just kind of all unfolded like that. When it works like that, you just kind of stay where you are, and then you also have to be aware on the back end of when everything is coming to fruition and figure out your next move.
Sure.
And it just finally felt like it was time to come home. So that's what I did and started playing.
Jeremy, you say that you're in San Antonio? Is that where you are?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Some of the, I've got some very fond memories of San Antonio. The music scene there I always thought was really good. I mean, Austin is Austin. But I always thought that the music scene, especially the indie music scene and the indie country music scene in San Antonio were just top notch. And I don't think